Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew with James Kirkland.
Powerful and provocative. Prophetic and practical.
Have you ever found yourself?
Are you dating for that person?
Informative and
I feel
inspirational.
every bit of it. Like, I'm not trying to waste my
How you gonna do better if you don't know what better looks like? I do.
Intellectual stew.
Come on, let's talk about it with me, the mind massager.
Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew with James Kirkland. Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew with James Kirkland.
Gotcha.
Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew with James Kirkland. Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew.
I ain't know I can do this. Make sure that's the right microphone.
Intellectual.
Of the intellectual stew with yours truly, James Kirkland. Can you all hear me? If you can, put a one in the chat or say hello or let me know where you're listening from. Say live, hashtag live, say something. Let me know that that I'm transmitting and that you are able to hear me. And we'll get this conversation started momentarily. Let me make sure I got the right microphone set up because I did not check it. Yep, looks like I'm transmitting. So I guess we're good on this end. All right, so what's up? Time for another episode of the Intellectual Stew. We have been dealing with this series called Faith After a Fall. And what we have been doing is looking at the biblical character by the name of Samson. And looking at Samson. Let me turn this down because I usually cut everything off, but I guess I didn't cut everything off. I got it off now. Okay. All right. Notification went in my ear and scared me almost. Oh, let me put the phone number up in case somebody wants to call in. I guess I'm a little discombobulated, but we've been dealing with this series called Faith after a fall, and we've been looking at the biblical character by the name of Samson, and more specifically, we have titled this series, or this segment of the series, we've titled it "Blinded but Still Useful." It indicates, it's emblematical of someone by the name of Samson, a biblical character in the book of Judges. Hey, what's up, Charlotte? The biblical character, and he represents a lot of us who, like Samson, was born with a purpose, because Samson's purpose, God's purpose for him when he was built under obscure circumstances, because his mother prior to his birth had been barren. She had been unable to produce, but the Bible teaches us that she was visited by an angel, and the angel told her that she would conceive a child, and that no razor should come upon his head, that he would be of the Nazarites, and he was to be a judge, and more so, he was to be the deliverer of Israel from the Philistines. God had gotten sick of Israel's behavior, its actions. So, what's up, Dawood? So, God delivered the people over to the Philistines. And then he raised up a judge by the name of Samson. And Samson's purpose was to be a deliverer of the children of Israel from the Philistines. But if you do a character analysis of some of the things that Samson did some really bad things by societal standards, and they ended up ultimately leaving him blinded. And that's where we stopped off last week. I think let me give you just a real quick snippet of some video from last week, and we will get this thing going tonight. But this is a little bit of what we discussed last week. But when I start to operate in my gift, when I start to lose sight of my purpose, when I start to use grace as a license to sin because I know he'll forgive me, I'm in trouble. Because now I'm focusing on my gift more so than I'm focusing on God, or the giver of the gift. Y'all, I'm talking real good tonight. Boy, I'm talking real good tonight. I'm talking real good. And so the question is, how was Samson blinded? I'm not rushing through this. I'll part 2, part 3, part 4 of this story. I don't care. I'm gonna work my way through this. But how was Samson blinded spiritually? Because I want y'all to see that you don't have God. All right, hold on. Let me give you one more snip, and then I'm going to go for it. Hold on. We're going to be all right. Trust me. You're going to be all right. Believe me. Yeah. But a strong desire from validation, but here it is. And we talked about this in the past. When you suffer from a certain type of attachment style and you don't get the validation at home, you'll start seeking validation in other places. That's why you need to tell your children that you love them. And if you didn't do it for your children, do it for your grandchildren. That's why you need to let your children know that they're valued. That's why they need to feel acceptance at home, so that, oh God, because if they feel acceptance at home, then they'll know what proper acceptance feels like. They won't just run from pain to pleasure. All right. So yeah, if you want to hear the entirety of that show, that was last week when we were dealing with part 2 of Samson's story, blinded but still useful. But tonight we're going to pick up again. Last week we questioned why Samson, after seeing the pattern, Delilah would try to get his secret to his strength, and then he would basically tell her a lie, draw the Philistines in, and then he would beat them up, kill them, whatever he did. That happened 3 times in a row. 4th time, he got tired of hearing it. And when he got tired of hearing it, then he told her the source of his strength. And this time, when he went with what he knew, because see, that's the thing about it, Coy. That's the thing about it, Dawood. A lot of times we always have a tendency of going with what we know, especially when times get hard, right? Because routine, man. I mean, routine is what we want to, get into the routine of things. If we can get disciplined enough to do the same thing over and over and over again, it's more so probably so. Yeah, it probably is more so Bible study. I thought we had this conversation, Dawood. Remember you said this is what I do, but but yeah, this is more so Bible study. Yeah. But you can still call in and give your a little bit later in the show. You can still call in and give your assessment of what I'm talking about, because I try to make it as applicable as possible, not just straight in the Bible. I try to make it apply to use the lesson as a life lesson for all of us to use. But yeah, I guess you can kind of say it's Bible study. Yeah, but anyway, so Samson, now he's given up the secret to his strength. How many times have you given the secret of your strength to somebody who didn't deserve it? Right? You exposed a part of yourself that was really the gateway to your weakness. And that was what Samuel did, because we talked about what Samson last week. He was blinded long before he was blinded physically. He had been blinded spiritually, because anytime Dawood, anytime Coy, we lose sight of our purpose. And that's where we are. All of us, I don't care what you believe, all of us has, what's going on, Bishop G.T. Lewis? All of us has a purpose. When you were born, every man was given the light when he came into the world. That's why we used to sing the little song, before we went into all these other factions and whatnot. This little light of mine. We all have a light, right? We all have a purpose. And sometimes we lose sight of that purpose. And my contention, Dawood, is that whenever we lose sight of our purpose, in a sense, metaphorically, at that point, we have, in essence, become blind. Samson had a bigger purpose. His purpose was to be the deliverer of the Israelites from the Philistines. That was his God-given purpose when he was born. His purpose was to be the deliverer. But all of a sudden, he started going after strange women. Started going after the women of the Philistines instead of the women of his own customs, against his parents' better judgment. We talked about last week about how in Eastern culture, we used to be concerned about what our parents thought of our spouses. And if our parents or Big Mama and them said that boy wasn't going to work or that girl wasn't going to work, then we cut those relationships off. But now, we're so detached from Big Mama and them. I love to say that, and I hate to say it really, but I think the world got a whole lot weaker when everybody started calling grandmama. Well, the world started getting really messed up when everybody started calling grandmama weak. Right? Like we started not wanting to listen to her advice and learning how to adhere to those who have gone through what we've gone through. Now we got a little internet, we could do a little Google search and we know everything, but they don't come with wisdom, right? All those things, a lot of it don't come with trial and error. And sometimes people that have gone through things, if you listen to them, right, they can keep you from going through some of the same things that they're going. Listen, Manoah and his wife knew the calling that was on Samson's life. So they would have preferred that he be with someone who understood his anointing. It's hard to be with somebody who does not understand you. If they don't understand your drive, if they don't understand your purpose, if they don't understand your God-given gift, if they don't understand those things, they won't know how to protect those things. And then what'll happen is they'll get in a relationship based on what they can get from you and out of you. That's why so many relationships now are so transactional. So many relationships now are transactional simply because we want to get with someone based on what we can get. How tall is he? What's his skin tone? Does he have curly hair? Does he have that back, that kinky? I mean, because you trying to make the test tube back, yeah, right? Because it's how much money does he make? Not does he treat me well? Not can we grow together? Not that he compliments me or she compliments what I'm already doing. And if 1+1 comes together and we do it right, we can multiply. Not only do we add, but we multiply, right? But so many times we want to go outside looking for what's right in front of us. He wanted to go out to Philistine women who didn't understand his custom. And because they wouldn't understand his custom, they definitely couldn't protect his anointing. No way they could protect it. And Samson had a calling on his life. Let me say this to everybody that's listening to me now and all those who will. You have a calling on your life. You have a purpose. And it's your job to try to figure out how to walk in that purpose. If those of you all who've heard me marketing my book lately, for a few years, I lost sight of my purpose when I was stuck on that couch, literally stuck. Literally, not only literally, because literally is cool, but the metaphorical part of it, right? The metaphorical part that when I want, listen, I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna give you an excerpt. I'm gonna tell you, Sharon, how bad it got. This is how bad it got. I would sleep on the couch, eat on the couch, watch TV on the couch, fall asleep. But I only had one TV at that time, so the TV was in the front room, right? So if I go to sleep, I fall asleep on the couch, and I might fall asleep till 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, right? And then I'll get up and try to go get in my bedroom. But when I went in the bedroom, the silence sounded like noise. And because the silence sounded like noise, it was too noisy for me to stay in that room. So I had to go back and get back on the same couch. Now I would get up and go throughout the day. Thank God I had some spiritual ravens that showed up. One of my spiritual ravens was my pastor. He every day pretty much, because we had a lot of funerals going on back then. And he would always call me, come on, help me with this, Kirk. Come on, help me. Trying to keep me engaged, make sure I was eating. I had more styrofoam containers in my refrigerator from funeral food at the church, because people were trying to make sure I ate, because they understood I was going through. And those spiritual ravens, see, that's what. And if you look at 1 Kings, when Elijah was sitting by the brook, I've taught you all this before. See, every day, even though it was a drought in the land, ravenous birds, ravens, would show up with meat that it could have eaten and gave it to Elijah to make sure he had to eat. Same thing happened to me when I was stuck in my situation, because even while you're losing sight of your purpose, God still sustains you in that meantime. But here's the question: what do you do in the meantime when times are mean? Huh? So Samson kept going outside of his custom when he could have. But let me say this, because if you read the scripture teaches you that it was the will of God. God had to get him among the Philistines so that he could be the deliverer of the Israelites from the Philistines, right? So, but Samson had bad attitude, man, and Samson did some things that were not right, that were not emblematical of one that would be carry on the cause of the kingdom. Because I can't say Christ, because Christ hadn't come at that particular point. Okay. All right. So I imagine, so I want us to imagine Samson after they've gouged his eyes out, after after he has given the secret of his strength. Not only after he's given the secret of his strength, but when they came in and they jumped on it. Now, 3 times prior to this is happening, Samson prevailed. This time he goes in that same bag, but what used to work didn't work anymore. See, that's how you know when that shift is about to take place, because see, you are maxed out where you are. God. When you start to max out where you are and God is ready to take you to the next level, then the stuff that worked on this level don't work anymore. It's because it's God taking you to another level. Because see, every new level presents a new devil. And the stuff that worked last time won't always work next time. Now you put that in your faith file, and it's good evidence, because it's proof that God can, right? Because he's been victorious before. But sometimes when the victor feels like the victim, and that's where Samson is, because Samson is in a prison now, after being the victor for so long, now he's a victim because he's blind. And now that he's blind, he has to look not through his physical eye, but he has to look through his mind's eye. And when he looked through his mind's eye, now he has to feel the remorse, because guess what? That's when the mirror of the rear comes up. You start looking at your past and looking at the mistakes you made, and you look at the things you could have forfeited. Paul said, I count all things but loss. The word loss in the Greek means I forfeited some things. It was some things the enemy didn't take them from us. We forfeited those things. Understand, when we're in the master's hand, no one can pluck us out, but we can be drawn away of our own lust. And so while we were in our safety, when we forfeited those things and then we become blinded, that's when things start to really illuminate, and we can really see now. And we start to see on a whole new level. I bet Samson saw every woman he messed up with. I bet Samson saw every mistake he made. But all of these things happen. Why? Because of the choices that Samson made. The things that happen in our life, because God allows us to operate with this thing called a permissive will. Because he allows us to operate with a permissive will, we are 100% responsible for the choices that we make. Samson's lust for instant gratification led him to reveal the secret of his strength, something that should have been kept sacred. But he made the choice to tell. Look at that. It's Judges 16 verse. Somebody told me to make sure I gave y'all scripture reference. That's Judges 16 verses 15 through 19. Judges 16 verses 15 through 19. Now, he couldn't even see where Delilah had betrayed him and led him to his physical blindness as a consequence of his poor decisions. He became so spiritually blind. And not only did he become spiritually blind, because we see that his choice led to consequence. What was the consequence? The consequences led to him being blinded. Think about it. After his eyes were gouged and he was placed in chains, he must have felt how would you feel if you have been victorious all of these times? Every time you went out against the enemy, you won. Because some of y'all have probably never felt defeat. I know y'all on your way to heaven and enjoying the trip. I mean, all is well in your life. I get it, but I ain't gonna lie. I've experienced mountaintop moments, and I've also experienced valley type moments, right? And the mountaintop moments are difficult to deal with, man, because the mountaintop moments, the mountaintop moments are cool because, we make it through it. We're fine. We're good. Everything is great and grand. But if you ever look at the positioning of a mountain, mountains are right next to valleys, right? So when you come down from the mountain, typically there's a valley right there. And the question is, how do you handle your valleys after you've dealt with your mountains? And Samson had dealt with many mountaintop moments. He took a jawbone of an ass and killed several men. He took a lion and ripped it apart with his bare hands. And and every time he went out and went and had a fight, I mean, literally he won. I mean, so he was used to being a victor. But what happens when the victor turns into the victim? Because now when we see Samson is sitting in jail in chains, the same chains that a couple of days ago he could have broken. Now he doesn't have the power to break those. I mean, what happens when God turns everything upright? But his choices led to those consequences. What were some of the choices he made? Well, one of the choices that Samson made was to be cocky. I mean, Samson was cocky, man. He boasted in his strength. I mean, and used it as a weapon. And that's one thing I don't like about people who operate from a platform of positional power. Because see, I've always learned, and I thank God for Bishop Jonathan Alvarado. He taught me as one of my undergraduate professors. And he used to always say that 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 the test of true power is when you're willing to give it away. That's what he would always teach us. He say the test of true power is when you're willing to give it away. And if you are so concerned about losing power, then you probably don't have real power, right? And so Samson had operated in a physical strength for so long that he expected that physical strength to show up every time he needed that physical strength. But this time, when he went to go get that physical strength was not available. And because his physical strength was not available, then now he's found himself in a very, very uncommon position. And now he's been relegated to being imprisoned, blinded, only being able to see with his mind's eye. That's a tough place to be in. That's a tough place to be in. That's a the test of true power is when you're willing to give it away. And he wasn't. And the thing about it is when he went back to go and get what had been readily available, it wasn't because see, when you get so consumed with your gift, you'll forget about the source of the God who granted you the gift. And you'll start thinking that you are able to operate in your own strength instead of the true source of the strength. And then cockiness will show up. John Maxwell talks about different stages of leadership. You know, he talks about positional power. Then he talks about, you know, that's because they voted you in. You know, they don't really respect you. They just respect the position because somebody has to occupy it. It so happens to be you. So that's positional power. Then he talks about permissional power. When people give you permission to lead them, now they're saying, I accept you as my leader. Joshua, you know, he got called in one chapter, but God didn't magnify him until about 7 chapters later, right? Because you got to, then you go from that stage to people producing, right? You start to, that's not my lesson tonight. But anyway, Samson he struggled in that area. And so when he became cocky. And when he became cocky, he did things like tear the lion apart, don't tell anybody about it, come back, get the honey out of the carcass of the lion, you know, all these things, right? Because he started to show his self-reliance, treating everything as though it was casual, like it wasn't God. If God allows you to do things that others are unable to do, evidently his hand is up on your life. See, I think sometimes we get misguided as it relates to these things called miracles. We don't understand that a miracle is anything that God gives you the ability to do that you could not have done for yourself. And when you start to take credit for those things, then you've discounted the deity and the deeds that he does for us. Yeah. So Samson was cocky. He was also a bad choice to act as a mockery and carelessness. In Judges 15 and 16, he mocked his enemies after he slayed 1,000 men with the jawbone of an ass. He said, with the donkey's jawbone, I have made donkeys of them. This statement showcases his pride. He wasn't glorifying God for his victories. Instead, he took all the credit for himself. He flirted with danger. He was very arrogant in his relationships. I mean, Samson, you know what? Earlier today, I had to go back and really look to see what good Samson did. Man, I remember when I'm not going to tell you the mistake, but I remember a mistake I made a long time ago, man. And when I was on the couch, I was kind of going down memory lane and reflecting. And there was one mistake I made that particular time. I made this mistake. And when I made it, first thing I saw was my ministry. And I was scared. I'm like, man, God, I messed up. God, I messed up. And God spoke to me like he's like, you hear my voice audibly. I heard his voice. God said, Kirk, he said, you fell before you got up. I said, huh? He said, you failed. Because see, so many people get on a pedestal and they go so high. And then when they fall, I mean, it's a long fall. Look at Diddy right now, man. Diddy, and I don't really, follow him like that. But so many people that have names, and that have influence, and people follow them. People depend on them for payroll and all these things. But that walk and that level of power also requires a certain level of integrity. And integrity is what you do in the dark when nobody's looking, right? It's the state of being whole, right? And so when you operate with integrity, you don't have to hide, right? But but when you fall, that means something that had been exposed, right? Because kingdoms fall. Because sometimes we build up kingdoms. And last time I checked, God said, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me." And so when we build these altars and make these other kings and these idols and build these uzzahs and these things that block us from seeing God, then all of a sudden that idol falls. And he falls publicly. God said, "Kirk, you fell before you got up." And I said, "Thank you." Because I appreciate the opportunity to get a chance to get it right. I don't want to be blinded physically while I'm still in my cockiness. God, I thank God that while I was on my couch in my situation, that he kept sending these subtle reminders. And every now and then he'll come and he'll turn the light on for a minute. And when he turned the light on, man, I'm able to even, see. And one of the best lights I saw was a mirror. Because the mirror, like the light, reveals some things that I didn't see physically. And a lot of times, you know what? The reason why I didn't see it is because I wasn't looking. And it's funny sometimes because even when you don't see it, it doesn't mean that other people don't see it. But the problem is, because you don't see it, you don't believe it. For years, I refused to look in the mirror, and so I didn't see what other people saw. And even so, when they told me what they saw, I'm like, yeah, right, because I didn't take the time. But at a certain point, like that prodigal son in the pig pen experience, where you come to yourself and you go ahead and you make the decision to go ahead and say, you know what, let me go and check this man out in the mirror, because evidently, if everybody keeps telling me the same thing, then there must be something that I'm missing. And see, that's when you really take a good dose of humility, right? Because see, this is the challenge. We want to learn. Pops told me something as a little boy that has stuck with me all my life. One thing Dad told me was that you can learn something from anybody, even if it's what not to do. So there's some lessons to be gleaned or to be learned from Samson's life, even if it's what not to do. Because the last thing we want to do is become physically blind to something that had been revealed to us prior to the physical blind. He lost his spiritual sight long before he lost his physical sight. And if he had just come to himself, perhaps he could have avoided blindness. But sometimes God will allow us to be a martyr. Sometimes God allows us to go through because he's trying to bring glory out some other way. Because Samson had made the choice to be cocky. He chose to be careless. He flirted with danger, but he was also living a carefree lifestyle. And to whom much is given, somebody help me out. How does that end? To whom much is given, much is required. Yeah. Oh yeah, Dennis, you're doing a wonderful job with your children, man. Congratulations on your daughter. I see how she's moving in the basketball arena, man. And I know she's following in her daddy's footsteps. But yeah, to whom much is given, much is required. So when God starts putting all of this giving you this influence and giving you this power, and start trusting you with these gifts, at that point, you're responsible for those gifts. And Samson acted irresponsibly. He started to live such a carefree lifestyle in public. Let me tell you something, married men, and I was there, and I messed up. I'll be honest with you. But you can't live like a single man when you're married. One thing I've heard women say more than anything is, don't have me out here looking bad. Don't have me out here looking foolish. Or don't have me out here making me look crazy, right? And that's because it's a certain requirement that comes along. When we have power, and we've been gifted with power, and we've been gifted with influence, we're responsible for that. And if we're living a carefree lifestyle, I think somewhere in the word it says something about let not your good be spoken evilly of. I think, Avery, I might let me know if I'm in Bible territory with that one. We're responsible. Integrity is what you do when nobody else is looking. And I know I've done some things in my past, but I thank God that before the physical blinding took place, I recognized and I adjusted my spiritual sight. Yeah. I adjusted. I took my focus and I started to change it, and I started to look at it a different way. But in some cases, it's too late. But hey, but I'm still walking towards that purpose. And at a certain point, Samson made the transition from cockiness to brokenness. And it happened in a moment. It don't take long. When you trust certain people with a certain part of you and they abuse that trust, he loved Delilah. His love might have been rooted in lust. Let me ask y'all, Bishop, you on here? Bishop Avery, you on here? Let me ask you, do y'all think any part of Delilah loved Samson? I want to see what your answer is on that. Do y'all think any part of Delilah loved Samson? Now, I know she loved 1,100 pieces of silver. I get it. I know she loved the money, but did she love him before? Because, we've heard the statement that love has limits, you know what I'm saying? And maybe her limit was $1,100, and so many, this society now, they dating your pockets. It's a different kind of love nowadays, man. I'm telling you but her love, let me see, good question. Okay, right there. Maybe, yeah, that's a good answer. Anybody else? What do you think? Do you think she loved him? And there are different types of love. There's an eros, and we can talk about the agape and the different types of love. But do you think any part of her loved him? Some theologians suggest that she did. Some say she didn't. But either way, her love had limits. She loved his notoriety. Okay, I like that. She loved what he could give her. He was because his notoriety, he was a judge. He was a judge of Israel. He had a powerful position in the land. And not to mention he had some big muscles, and he was strong, and he could break chains, and women, they like being attached to a winner, don't you, Charlotte? They want to see somebody who can I was talking to a lady, she's a preacher too, and she was like, she said, if she wanted a man who she knew if he had to, he could handle his business. I said, fight? She said, yeah. I said, well, y'all gonna be at y'all gotta fight. But women want to feel protected. So, and Samson could provide all of that. But and here's another thing, because whenever you marry outside of your custom and they don't understand your custom and they're attached to another custom, she was more loyal to the people who were in her custom instead of the man who she was laying in the bed with. Okay, they said that she didn't love him. She loved what came with it. Oh, your daughters are smart. Your daughters are, yeah. Because see, people are attracted to power. I just said a minute ago, Bishop Lewis, this little short, fat dude that has a position thinks that he's that fine. She's not attracted to you, dude. It ain't you. It's the position. Because the position looks like it has power. Samson looked the part and he was the part. Power. Some people were attracted to power, but she sold that power out for 1,100 pieces of silver. And all of a sudden now, because 3 times he's gone to the well, these men have come in to prevail against him, he prevailed. But the 4th time he goes to the well, Bam, he goes to the well, pulls out that strength again, and when he pulls out the strength this time, his knife that used to be a razor blade is a butter knife. It has no power. Now that's a good point. Now Bishop is a theologian with me. I'm just, every image we've ever seen shows that he has power. Now that's a good hermeneutic, and that's a good point. Do you think he had muscles? I'm gonna put that on the screen. Do you think he had muscles? Because they didn't know the source of his strength. But even if he had muscles, he was still stronger than the average man. But that's a good point. Good point of study. But I want you to use I used to hear Craig Oliver say this. Join me in the theater of my mind as we take a quantum leap from the geometrical confinements of the sanctuary. No, join me in the theater of my mind real quick. As he's sitting here now, his eyes are closed. Now, I'm going to be honest with you all. There are times that I need to see on another level. And when those times come, I have to close my eyes to see. Because I'm not looking for anything in the natural. I'm looking for something in the spiritual. When I really want to, when I'm really praying and I'm asking God for something and I really need to see, or I'm trying to visualize. Some people athletes, you can visualize. If Dennis's daughters are still watching, you can visualize yourself shooting a free throw before you actually do it, right? And you start. Then all you have to do is do muscle memory to make it happen. If your mind is strong enough, so when you imagine that you've closed your eyes because you can't see. That's what Samson was. And he has to deal with this moment of betrayal because she shaved his head, number one, while he was asleep. See, if I have a woman in my life, I don't want her to take advantage of me when I'm my most vulnerable. When I'm sleeping, because if I lay my head in your lap, man, I trust you, man. If I'm sleeping beside you, man, that means you have my heart. I trust you. But while I'm asleep, you've gone after my weakness. She shaved his hair knowing that was the true source of his strength. And then all of a sudden he goes to get it and it's not there. So he's dealt with this moment of betrayal. Somebody that he loved sold him out. I mean, can you imagine the moment when he realized that the Lord had departed from him? That's a scary place to be. Let me just say this for free. I don't want to be anywhere that God's spirit is not. I don't. Even when I go places I don't have no business going, I thank God that that his eyes still see even where I am, just to go before me and make the rough places plain and make the crooked straight. I'm just thankful that even in those moments, right? But here Samson was dealing with betrayal, and he's dealing with he's physically blind, but he's also bound because he's been humiliated by the Philistine. He went from being a powerful, untouchable man to a prisoner grinding grain in the prison house. His blindness had a way of stripping away his self-reliance, and how in this case it made him confront spiritually. And I think he sees clearer now than he's ever seen before once he became blinded. But it made him confront his vulnerabilities and his mistakes. Let me ask you something. What if we were mature enough to confront our vulnerabilities and our mistakes prior to our eyes being gouged out by our enemies? Because let me tell you something. The enemy does not want you to see. 2 Corinthians 4:4, but the God of this world, in whom the God of this world hath blinded the light of blinded the minds of them. Let me say that right. The light of this world, the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them, lest the light of the glorious gospel should be hid. The enemy does not want you to see light because, number one, it exposes him, but number two, it illuminates your path. When I was a little boy, I mastered walking around in the dark. I knew every step in my house. I knew I could take 4 or 5 steps, get out of my bedroom to make it to the steps. Then I could walk down the stairs. Then I almost could go in the kitchen with my eyes closed. I could literally go walk around because I just would imagine, what if I was blind? How would I get around, right? But what if I didn't have a choice in the matter? Because anytime I was walking around with my eyes closed, I could easily open up my eyes and check my progress. Anytime I want, oh, I gotta do a commercial. Hold on 1 second. Let me do a commercial. Y'all do me a favor. Hang out. Give me about 2 minutes. I'm gonna do a commercial, and I gotta go put this. My daughter getting off work, so I need to go put this salmon in the air fryer. 2 minutes. Let me play this commercial, and I'll be right back. Okay? Give me one hot second. I'll be right back. Well, I gotta pull the commercial up first. Here it is.
In the blink of an eye, everything can change.
20 years of marriage, 3 beautiful children, a home filled with memories, gone. James Kirkland II was left with nothing but the silence of his own thoughts and a couch that became his prison. But in the depths of despair, subtle reminders of purpose began to pierce through the darkness. God had not forgotten him. In every small sign, in every whisper, in the stillness, James began to rediscover who he was and why he was still here. Stuck on the Couch is not just a story of loss, but a journey of resilience, faith, and the courage to embrace a new normal. Available now wherever books are sold. All right, I made it back. Okay. Whew. I had put up a little overlay in case I didn't make it back, but I made it back. So I put the I cooked today. I made what I make? Salmon, sweet potato, a baked sweet potato, and I did some zucchini and squash. I did all that. So I had to go put that in because baby girl will be getting off work in a minute, and it's gonna be on. Yeah, the book is available, y'all. If I have some available here, go to my page and order it from me. If you want to get it through Amazon, that's fine. It's a little bit higher through Amazon, but you can get it through me. I'll put the link in here a little bit later on, but that's my story. All right, so let's keep talking about Samson. I love this. Samson has gone from brokenness to blindness because he's been stripped of all of these things. But I believe at this point, have you all noticed that sometimes people got to go to prison before they're able to see? Sometimes we have to get to our lowest point before the light comes on, if you will, right? If the light just came on sooner, how much heartache and how much could we have avoided, right? If the light had come on sooner. I'm about to put the phone number up, and I'm going to put the link in the chat, because if anybody wants to come in and vibe with me tonight, it is I'm cool with that. Honestly, I would love to have company. So let me put this let me put the link in the chat. Give me 1 second, y'all. If y'all have any questions or comments, y'all let me know. I'm enjoying this. I got the Dennis Pittman on tonight. Got the Dennis Pittman. I got Bishop GT Lewis on tonight. I love seeing men. Charlotte is very faithful. She comes on quite a bit. So I appreciate you all. We're going to continue in a second, but I want to put the link in the chat. And I also want to put the phone number up. I'm going to do that here in just a moment. If you don't mind. Hold on. Just 1 minute. I'm sorry. Here we go. There we go. Boom. It's in there. And I'm going to pin it. Pin comment. And now let me put the phone number up for anybody that might want to come in and talk, because some of y'all have been in the same place Samson was. So don't sit here and act like Samson is the only one who did it. We live in such a punitive society. The United States is the most incarcerated country in the world, right? Because we don't believe in giving people second chances. We want to, if they did it, they're innocent and they're guilty, and forget about trying to prove they're innocent. So if Samson did some bad things, we want to throw him away like he's a trash. How many people tried to throw you away? And you know what happened? I know people threw me away. They forgot about me, because when they finally saw me again, some of them said, "Where you been?" And they will. And that's okay. Because while you're stuck in that position, even though Samson was in the prison house grinding grain, I guarantee you one thing: all Samson wanted was one more opportunity. Because for Samson, it was a turning point. His blindness was a turning point. For some of you, your spiritual blindness is your turning point. It's the opportunity because you've had little flashes. You've had little blackouts. That's what I'm going to call it. Let's call them blackouts tonight. Thank you, Holy Ghost. Let's call them blackouts. You've had little blackouts where it looked like you could have gone blind, but you didn't go blind. Now unto him who's able to keep you from falling. Because you could, what does the word keep mean? The word keep in the Greek comes from the word phulasso. It means something that would have spoiled has been given a renewed lease on, a prolonged lease on life. Why? Because it's been preserved. You and I, we've been preserved. Anytime that he could have cut us off, but chose not to cut us off, that was another chance. That was him preserving us. We could easily end up like Samson and be physically blind, but God says no. And even when giving us our blackouts while we're spiritually blind, that's him saying, get it right. That's grace stepping up. That's God's redemption at Christ's expense. That's him saying, you know what? I could take you out now, or I could end it now, but I got purpose for you. I would rather you walk in your purpose and fulfill your purpose than destroy. His physical blindness was more than just a loss of sight. It was the end of an era. It was the end of his arrogance. Because now without his eyes, he could no longer depend on his physical strength. He couldn't depend on his good looks. He couldn't depend on any of that. This forced him to focus inward. You and I need to learn how to focus inward first before it's too late. Let me ask you a question, real talk, and y'all can answer it. I really would appreciate it if you would. But how many of us only truly reflect when we're stripped of the things that once defined us? That's like someone, prior to 2009, man, people were getting money, man. Before the real estate crash, they were getting money. I knew people who were buying big homes, buying fine cars, and set up their budget on crazy amounts of money. But then that real estate crash came, and the money that was there wasn't available anymore, right? And so same people who were driving Mercedes, now they're driving little regular cars, and the things changed, right? Because and at that point, the things that defined them were no longer accessible. And so many of us, if you're honest, I don't know, is anybody else? Please call in. And the number's right there. The link's right there. But somebody else, if the truth be told, you couldn't really see until you lost everything. Because, see, sometimes things will act like an eclipse in our life. And they'll cause us to become blind to the things that really matter. Yeah. When we have so many other things and access to things and the goods, we'll forget the God. We'll forget the grace, and then we'll start to go down. And because we end up blind. How does that work? After being blinded, Samson was finally forced to depend on, I'm going to finish this tonight. He was finally forced to confront his dependency on God, because now, like I said earlier, sometimes you have to close your eyes when you really want to see. He had nothing left, no strength, no sight, no freedom, but in this place of brokenness. This is Judges 16:28. In his place of brokenness, this is where Samson found his way back to God. Look at verse 28. Samson finally prays and acknowledges that his strength comes from God, not himself. He said, "Oh Lord God," this is what he said, "remember me, I pray, strengthen me." He thought God had forgotten about him. God doesn't forget. He lets you do what you do because he's not a bully. He's a gentleman. He's not going to make you do anything. God wants you to choose him. He wants to be chosen, right? And so he's there and he's available, he's accessible, but you have to be audible. You have to call him. He says, I pray just this once, at least one more time. Oh God, that I may take with one blow, take vengeance on the Philistines for my 2 eyes. He's still a little selfish because he's upset about his eyes. But at the same time, he's going to do God's will because his purpose was to destroy the Philistines and to deliver the children of Israel. This prayer reflects his brokenness, humility, and newfound resilience because a transformation took place right there in that jail cell, right there in his physical blindness. He was finally reminded of his purpose, and he finally wanted to walk in his purpose. All of us should have a desire to walk in purpose. We don't take breaks. I did, I ain't gonna lie. But we're not supposed to take breaks. Yeah. Despite his blindness and his mistakes, God still had a purpose. But despite your blindness and your mistakes, you might have been an alcoholic. Might still nip every now and then. Doesn't change the fact that God has a purpose. And when you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, waking up with hangover or whatever, or forgetting all that kind of stuff, then you'll make that transition. Whatever. All of us have something. I mean, all of us have something. So even though Samson had made some grave mistakes, God still used him in a mighty way. And this is a powerful message for people who feel like they are defined by their past. When you come to yourself and you experience true humility, Samson finally experienced humility after all of the arrogance, after all that he had done wrong. God humbled him. Now, it behooves us. I like that. That's a good preacher word. It behooves us to humble ourselves before he humbles us. Y'all don't say, if y'all can't say amen, you can at least say ouch. It behooves us. That's a good preacher word. I'm using that one more time. It behooves us to humble ourselves instead of allowing him to humble us, because if he humbles us, he'll allow life to humble us. And if life humbles you, it hurts. I don't even know what to say. If you allow life to hurt you, right? Because Dennis, how many times you got to tell me the stove is hot? You tell me the stove is hot, man, I'm not going to go over there and put my hand on it. In fact, I'm going to feel the heat probably from about 2-3 feet away. But if I keep getting chance after chance after chance, that's maturity. And that's how we raise our children. Some of us, you might, if you're not creative, that's the only thing you know how to do is spank them. Then you spank them, and that's what you do. Do that. That's your thing, right? That's how your mode of discipline. Do what works in your house. Some people, you can talk to them. I could just look at mine and raise my eyebrows, and have a certain conversation. I don't think I might have put my hands on my son once or twice, but I don't think I ever touched my girl. But I didn't have too much. I would put them in situations to think, and then I would test those thought processes. And that was my form of training. And Dennis Pittman, training leads to trusting. So now I'm at a stage in life, I don't give advice anymore unless they ask, because I think life will teach them, right? Because and I can't always keep them shielded and covered, because they're going to get exposed if I don't allow them to go and experience that exposure. Does that make sense? So if life has a way of lending lessons, my job is to teach my children how to consider the clues, because that's what I've learned how to do. And see, Samson didn't learn that quick enough, that life lends those lessons, because every day life is teaching. What did Solomon say? David had it so bad, he started saying, how amiable are the birds. He started learning from the birds. Solomon would look at ants and look at spiders and look at their characteristics and their behavior patterns and would learn. But he'll look how the ant worked And because you can take this little bitty ant that doesn't have any mass or any weight, but they get together and form a team and they start moving stuff around, right? And Solomon would learn from those things. And life lends lessons the same way, but we are too busy to consider the clues. Samson, I'm sure, had signs. He had 3 in the form of Delilah, but he didn't take them. And now here he is, blinded, grinding grain. But thank God he served a God who still hears and answers, because God heard him and God gave him another chance. God gave him a chance at redemption. And isn't it wonderful that he allows us the opportunity to come and experience true redemption? Yeah, because the text teaches us that even while he was blind, that at a certain point the Philistines got a little too cocky. See, they didn't realize they wasn't just fighting Samson, but they were fighting who Samson represented. And see, Dennis, your daughters are probably not only known by their name, but they're also known by your name, right? Because you got a little legacy in that city as well, right? And they know your last name, so they know. So when God puts his name on us, especially when he's given us a calling and he's given us a purpose and all of those things, see, his purpose is going to be performed. I don't care how it happens or when it happens. Now, sometimes we prolong the process with our actions or our inactions or our reactions. When we prolong the process, right? But in the end, God still gets the glory. And they thought they had won, but every time the enemy thinks that he's won, that's when God steps in. And in that moment, they said, you know what? What about Samson, the same one that used to defeat us? Bring him out here right now so we can start making sport with him. We can make fun of him. And all of a sudden, they brought Samson out of the prison, still in chains, still blinded, didn't know where he was. He just knew he was somewhere. And I don't know how he did it. My sanctified imagination thinks that maybe he kind of felt around for a little bit because he knew the prayer that he prayed, right? So he felt around, and all of a sudden he felt 2 pillars. And all of a sudden he called on the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and said, Lord, if I've ever had strength in the past, can you give it to me one more time? And all of a sudden he started pushing on this pillar and pushing and pushing. And all of a sudden, because they didn't realize, because here it is right here, they didn't realize that while he was in prison, his hair was growing back. And you know what? Sometimes while you're down, even while you're blind, once you've acknowledged your mistake, once you've realized that you've messed up and you've been humble enough to say, Lord, I'm sorry. You know, you'll deal differently with your children. I got a friend right now going through something with one of her children. And she said, you know, I want to cut her off and I got to cut her off because she's going to have to come to me and apologize. And she's saying that if the child, no matter what the infraction is, if the child comes back and means it with a heart of contrition and says, I'm sorry, I messed up. And that's what Samson did with God. He said, God, I'm sorry. And in the process, Samson's hair kept on growing. And then eventually his hair grew back. And as his hair grew back, guess what? His strength grew back. And all of a sudden now he felt himself in the midst of thousands of Philistines. And you know what the Philistines represented? The Philistines represented the enemy. They represented everything that stood in opposition to what his purpose was. His true purpose was anything that stands in opposition to your purpose, it has to become dead to you. That don't mean you have to kill it, but it has to become a non-factor in your life. Isaiah said, I could not see the Lord until my uncle Uzziah died. You got some things in our life that keep us from seeing our true purpose. And because they keep us from seeing our true purpose, we will forever live life limited until we humble ourselves and we ask God for another chance. But can I tell you something? He's not a God of a second chance. He's a God of another chance. And he'll give it to you if you ask him. Samson asked for forgiveness, asked for strength one more time. And guess what God did? God gave him strength. Not only did he give him strength, but he gave him renewed strength. strength because he pushed up against those pillars and he kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And everything that represented the enemy that was in his immediate vicinity died when he pushed the pillars until the temple fell. And let me tell you something. When you get renewed strength, if you're willing to push, what does push mean? Pray until something happens. Watch and see, won't God shift whatever's wrong in your life, and you'll be back on the path to better. You'll be back on the path towards your purpose, because we all have a purpose. Despite what Samson had done, I'm sorry, I've gone over about 5 minutes so far. Despite what Samson had done, despite his cockiness, despite his choices, he had to deal with the consequences. But even in the end, God still used him. He was blind. Let me tell you something. While you are in your current state, while you're able to see, when you have moments where God comes in and shows you where you might be spiritually blind, acknowledge that and change your focus. Because obviously you're focused on something that God does not want you to be focused on. That's what Samson did. That was Samson's mistake. Now let me say this, because although Samson did make some bad decisions, because I had to ask, he did do some good things. He delivered Israel, and in a sense, he demonstrated strength now. Like I told you earlier, the test of true power is when you're willing to give it away. So sometimes strength that looks like strength is pseudo strength. I submit he was stronger at the end while he was blind than he ever was while he could ever see. Number 3, he also destroyed a Philistine temple, which was his purpose, to deliver Israel from the Philistines. But also, you know what he did that a lot of us don't do? And Dennis Pittman, I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to close. One thing that Samson did, and if we don't learn anything else from Samson, we can learn this one. At a certain point, Samson admitted his need for God. Unfortunately, it was after he had been blinded. But I guess in this sense, it was better late than never. Because at a certain point, yeah, he was used. Even though he was blind, he came up there unable to see, in chains, locked up, tied up, tangled up, all of that. Some of us, same way, blind, unaware of our purpose, chained, locked up, tied up with the hustle and bustle of life and the cares of this world, and living with the reality that we messed up. And it's hard to really deal and live with that mistake, right? It's like Paul in Romans chapter 7. He talked about, oh, wretched man that I am. It was picture language of, if you killed a man during that time, you would have to literally walk around with his body on your back. And when you walk around with some of the mistakes and the sins, it's like walking around with that body, the weight of the world, or the weight of that body on your back. Yeah. So Samson, in the end, although he was blind, still proved to be useful. Let me close by saying this. I don't know who I'm talking to, but you, like Samson, might have made some bad decisions. You might have made some horrible mistakes. But as long as there's breath in your body, that means you still have an opportunity, that before the physical blindness takes place, to adjust your focus, recalibrate your lenses, and get back on, here it is, let me say it, I love to say it, get back on the path to better. I'm on the path to better. And I hope you all will join me. We're going to continue to have these types of discussions. We're going to conclude our Samson series tonight, but we'll pick up I don't know. Next week we might take a break. I might bring a panel on next week and do something else in relationships. I don't know, but I'm either going to do a character analysis of either Joseph or David, one of the two, because both of them made mistakes as well. Joseph was a passive parent, but I don't know. I'm thinking about Joseph. I'm thinking about Joseph. But that's what I'm gonna do. If you have not had the opportunity to purchase Stuck on the Couch by yours truly, please, ma'am, please, sir, order that. Let me see if I can pull up the link for you right quick. I'll put it in the chat. Let me see if I can get it up fast. Here we go, because I don't want to make it hold you too long. But yeah, I've had fun tonight. I appreciate all of you. I appreciate all of you all for joining in and for sharing commentary. And I'm gonna tell you the thing that's so great to see men communicating like this, man. Dennis is a young man and has a good following himself as far as his podcast and whatnot. They do some. I've been trying to beg him to come on the show, y'all. He hadn't come on yet, but I'm gonna keep begging him. Hopefully one day he'll come on. But no, we might do something next week with the we might do something next week. Oh shoot, I put the link in the chat, but it went straight to let me see if I can copy it. It went straight to YouTube. Is there a way I can copy that? I don't know. Anyway, just come back and check later, or go to my page. I'll put it on my page. If you purchase it, listen, I'm gonna leave it like this until the first of the month. If you go on Amazon, it's $22.97 plus shipping and tax and all that kind of stuff. I'm just selling it for $20 plus $5 shipping and handling. Now I'm gonna do that price until the first of the month. Then it's going back up to $22.97. Okay. So I would encourage you to get it this week. I have a few left copies in. I have more ordered. So if you want to get some of the next order that's coming in, $25, you can either Cash App me. I can put the Cash App in here. You can either Cash App that to me and send me your address, inbox me your address, and I'll get it in the mail to you. Or you can go to my page and get the link if you want to pay with a credit card. If you want to pay with a credit card. Dang, I'm getting stumbled on. So if you want to purchase that book, go ahead and do that. That's the Cash App right there, $25, and I will ship that book to you, and you can read it. I had a woman bless my heart the other day at church. She said, "Kirk, I've read your book twice in the last 2 weeks." She said, "I love you." I said, "Oh, thank you." So people are telling me they are being blessed by it. So I would appreciate it if you would support us. Now, I am about to go and say good night. I've enjoyed you all. I've tried to keep these shows under an hour, but I didn't want to do a part 4 on this series. So I finished it tonight. And like I said, we'll jump into something else. I'm probably going to do a panel discussion so we can have some fun next week. It's the intellectual stew, right? So we mix it up. Sometimes it might be Bible. Sometimes it might be relationships. We never know what we're going to do. So I'm going to see what Corey got going on next week. And we'll have a panel next week. And maybe Tiffany will come back. And we'll get it going. All right. So as I always say every time I close, and I hope you all take heart to what I'm saying, but the world is changing. My question for you is, why do you remain the same? Y'all have a good night, and I'll check you out next week.
Intellectual stew with James Kirkland.
In the blink of an eye, everything can change. 20 years of marriage, 3 beautiful children, a home filled with memories, gone. James Kirkland II was left with nothing but the silence of his own thoughts and a couch that became his prison. But in the depths of despair, subtle reminders of purpose began to pierce through the darkness. God had not forgotten him. In every small sign, in every whisper, in the stillness, James began to rediscover who he was and why he was still here. Stuck on the Couch is not just a story of loss, but a journey of resilience, faith, and the courage to embrace a new normal. Available now wherever books are sold.